Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Upstate Miniman. Today we're going to finally finish off the front speakers in Landon's car. So he does not have the Harman Kardon system in there, but he does have regular, I want to say it's 6.5s and with tweeters up front. So we're going to be replacing that, and that'll be the final component for the audio system in Landon's JCW. So, all right, so this is what your panel piece looks like before it's taken apart. So you have your screws, 2 screws there. That pops out with a clip. There, that has to come off. The rubber piece has to come off. And then under the reflector is another screw. There's 4 screws total. Landon's just getting working on the other panel right now so you can kind of see. So that's where that reflector was. The hole that's underneath that leather arm piece, the plastic piece that pops off, and then the your other hole, and then all of it clips out, comes straight out. The question is how does it come off the top? Right. So, yep, clips all across the top. There we go. And the light should be easy to adjust.
Then you want me to just push it out?
Voila. And that's it. It's as easy as that. I'm taking the door panel off. You see all the clips on the door panel. That's where your screw holes are. All the clips are on there. So it's really simple. Voila. So taking a look at the speaker. This is a tweeter. There's a clip on the tweeter. Styrofoam around it, and the styrofoam's around it, and they got to glue down onto it. That's so that it doesn't rattle, since it's so close to it. Gotta figure out how to take that. Yep. Ta-da! So tiny little dome tweeter on there. Little polymer tweeter. Not even polymer. Hell, I don't know what that material is. And your old cardboard right there. So it looks like we've got 4 screws that are going to take that out. So I'm going to get the screwdriver to take that out. And that should be a simple swap out. But we'll see. All right, so that's what your speaker looks like. Small tweeter on it. It has a housing around it. I believe the kit that we bought has the housing with it, or they sent a housing with it to replace it. So working in a car stereo shop, there's been times where you don't have a housing for it. Let me see if I can set this here. Yay! There are times where you don't have the housing. We've literally had to cut the speakers out of there and take that bracket, which is built into it. So a little bit of a pain in the butt, but luckily they have a housing for it. So I'm going to get this disconnected and the other one put together. All right, so we're going to take a look real quick at what we've got for the speaker system that we bought for Landon's car. So it has the 6.5 that sits in the door, and then it has a tweeter. Those are all kind of separate components, but what we're going to end up doing is we're going to run it all together as one. So we picked up the Kicker 6.5 system. All right, so that's the component system we got for it. So we're sticking with all Kicker. There's our cat. She wants to get all up in this video too. So 250 watt peaks. We're running 125 RMS, but it's got so it's a component system. So you've got a driver for the tweets. So this is what it looks like out of the box. Speaker, this is a bracket that we're going to put on, and then we've got our adapters. So we talked about that before. We've only got one adapter, and you're like, well, you have two speakers. One adapter is for this speaker, and then this driver system is going to actually run up to the next one. So that's how that'll go. And then we have the tiny tweeter up in here that should fit right back in the space. So it's a good system and a good setup on it. Shouldn't be too hard to get installed. All right, so got it all figured out on how everything's wired. I already did the driver's side, so I'm going to show you kind of what we did on the passenger side here. So we see the door panel we have going on. Obviously, the 6.5's going there, and the tweeter's going up in here. So I pulled that out. Now, the tweeter that we have, it doesn't have the best way of fitting in here, but there's a bracket that goes over it, so hopefully it won't rattle. Otherwise, I'm going to have to probably just get some styrofoam to wrap around inside of there to keep that snug inside of there. But what we're going to do is, so as I mentioned before, I always recommend getting the clips, the factory clips. Now, factory clip is going to, as you can see, T-shape to T-shape right there. So that's going to clip directly on there, and that's direct sync. Now, the way a component speaker is ran, you have your 6.5, but then your tweeter is ran through the module. All right. So this module, it's a crossover essentially. So it's cutting out all the bass and mid-range to it as best as possible to try to give it a clearer sound to it. This is set up standard for an input, and then you have your mid-range and your tweeter. So what I'm going to do, because I want my mid-range sound, I'm going to run it through here. This is going to be my input. Then I'm going to run my mid-range and my tweeter. What we ended up doing is we bolted it off to the side here, and it fits perfectly inside that door. So I'm going to splice the wire. I'm going to have to cut the tips off of this so that I can tie into the input, which is okay. It doesn't matter because I'm not cutting anything on my factory wires. This is keeping the factory. This is my little cheap aftermarket adapter that's going to make sure that I don't cut any factory wires. So I'm going to snip these. I'm going to tie it into the input. Also, what I ended up doing is right here is a little piece of tape. It's covering up a hole. That's where I'm routing everything in. So I'm bolting the box on the outside, routing my input wire in through here, and wiring in my speaker wire through here. And then my tweeter, this is your tweeter wire right here. So I'm just going to follow my tweeter wire all the way up, and I'm going to route it all the way up to my tweeter. All right, so I got the wire spliced and taped, and then my T-connector right there. So just make sure on your T-connector the points inside of it are straight, so when you go to put it on, that it actually clips in properly to it. Push it on straight. Here, a nice little clip, and that's on there. So got that taken care of. I'm going to pull it back on through, make it a little taut, because I don't want this window coming down on these wires. and cutting the window up or anything. There's a little bit of distance, but you don't want to be shoving that back there. You throw your window off a track or whatever else. So I want to reduce the amount of potential of jacking that up and throwing it off track. Next thing is to, I'm going to run the component or the crossover. I'm going to run that mid-range up through the hole, and then I'm going to install the speakers. Now, when it comes down to installing the speaker, we've got the Kicker speakers, but they don't fit the setup. They go too far back, so they have to have a spacer. The factories had a spacer, so there's a little spacer that keeps it from going all the way back there. We got sent, Kicker sends a spacer for it. It's a multi-hole thing for Universal. We ordered everything from Crutchfield, and Crutchfield threw in spacers for free, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the free and the wiring harness gave us for free as well. So I love using Crutchfield, and they also give install instructions, but they send it to Landon, and I don't know where that goes. So I know how to do it. We're doing well with it. Essentially, what you're going to run into, though, is you see there's 4 holes. The holes don't align. There's a 3-hole bracket. The bottom 2 will align, and the top is going to be off by itself. So we're going to do a self-tapping screw up top, and we're going to tap right into that metal to keep that top up there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to bolt the speaker to the frame, and then bolt the frame to the cord. All right, so I got this speaker attached to the frame on here, or the bracket. So that's your spacer bracket. It gives enough clearance back there for the window motor and the window to go up and down. I bolted in the bottom 2. Like I said, I used the factory bolts on it, and it bolted right into the factory spot. Now I got to bolt in this top one. So this is a self-tapping screw. See, it's got a drill bit head on it, or a tip, and it's going to drill itself into the frame. So I'm gonna run it and stick it up towards the top here, apply pressure. Voila, perfection. So speakers on there good and secure. You're not going to get any rattle out of that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the tweeter up there. All right, I lied. We're not running the tweeter yet. We're actually going to hook up the crossover on here. So as it stands right now, just kind of want to get some of these wires up out of the way. I'm going to put it at a slight angle. Took the cover off, and then it's got holes right there. So I've got my self-tapping screws again. Short screws. I'm not doing long screws because I don't want to stick it too far through and it end up hitting the window or something like that. So I'm just going to self-tap it in. Kind of line it up how I want it. I think that's about good, right? I feel like that's kind of how the other one was.
Mm-hmm.
One. There's 2. So nice and snug on there. Simple. Put your protective case on. These rubber grommets here just to make sure. You sometimes get moisture. You know, you open up your door, you have your window down, stuff like that. So it's trying to make sure. Obviously, it's not waterproof. There's a mesh screen there, but it's to make sure that moisture just doesn't run down the line to the components. is the key to that. So, and clip. So that's it, and then good on that. So then this is my tweeter wire. I'll run my tweeter wire on over. So this, all of this extra wire here, I'm gonna tie it all in. But I'm gonna loop my tweeter wire up around. Just kind of follow this line here. It's already ran so that it's staying up out of the way. Just kind of twist it right on in there. That's taking up some of the excess. And then now we're up to the top here where I'm gonna place a tweeter inside. Tweeter is just a simple small tweeter. Compared to
The other ones I already took up.
Yep, we already put the other ones up, but the tweeter and the other ones are about half the size of this, diameter wise. This is about, looks like a one inch tweeter, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, I don't know. Where the other one was definitely like 1/2 inch at the most. Tiny little magnet on it. So what I did on the other side is I did the tweeter. You can see they're different lengths on the wiring here. But what I did was ran the wire up on through here, and I can't get it in. Sorry, let me do this first. So there's one of the brackets, but the brackets that they just don't fit. They've got external components. You can put it up on the pillar. They got a ton of stuff with it. But we want everything to look as factory as possible. So I just put it in there. I'm gonna run it up through here, and then I'm gonna clip it into these here. Make sure, black line, clips in. Rubber casing over it. Always put on your rubber. Yep, for safety. All right, so now it just kind of rattles. Problem is it sits in there and it's got so much space. So what I ended up doing on the other side, and I feel like it was worked out pretty well. I don't want anything really rattling around. So I just kind of shoved that back in there. And then I just took the wires and I looped it around the cone a little bit. And then placed it inside there. And now I don't really have a rattle on it. Wire's pretty much tucked away. I've got the excess there. And then when I put that casing and stuff on, it clips right on in there. And it doesn't rattle, and it's got the wire keeping it from, you know, sound deadening any sort of rattle on it. So that's it. The only other thing to do is to zip tie the wires up, clean the wires up.
Somewhere.
Did you put up that other zip tie, dude?
Possibly.
Pause that. Oh, look, zip tie. Woo! Yay! It just magically appeared in my hands. Zip tie the wires on up is the next thing to do. You always want to clean up your mess. You don't want anything hanging out. I would say you don't want it looking janky. It's going to be under the door, but it's still, if the wires move around and get underneath that window, it could cause damage. You can really just kind of mess your stuff up with keeping things laying around. It's electricity going through it, so if you don't tuck it up nicely, it could cross lines, it could create a negative contact, potentially be a fire hazard or a safety hazard if it crosses into another system of the car. So you always just make sure your connections are clean. They're good connections or solid connections. Put your rubber on. Always want to wear your protection. So you have your protection on your wires and stuff like that. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clean it all up. I'm going to make sure that what I've got here is taut. I'm not going to yank on it because I don't want to yank out my connections there. But I've got this wire that's already here and it's already bolted down. So it's already got a clip holding it down. So I'm gonna zip tie right on up to that set of wires there. Come on. All right, so that's on there, nice and snug. Cut off your excess on there, just to make sure that it's all clean. Leave yourself a little bit of excess, but let's cut that right on off of there. And there you go, it's all clean. It's all plugged up, it's hooked up. Before, my recommendation, before you put on any sort of panels, before you start putting stuff back together, test it first. Lord forbid you disconnect something, you cross something or whatever else. Test it, be ready to turn it on, and be ready to turn it off right away. If you'll know real quick if you screwed something up pretty bad, because you'll see sparks or you hear something bad or odd or whatever else. So just have you be ready. I am confident that I shouldn't run into that issue, but we'll kick it over and just see. Stereo's powering up, so we should be getting power going to it in a second here. All right, so I can clearly hear from there. I can hear from there, I can feel it. So everything's hooked up perfectly. So we're good to go on it. All we got to do now is just put this door panel back on, and that's it. That's how to run your front speakers in an R53, first generation Mini Cooper, or I want to say probably your R56s are the same, but I'm not 100%. This is how to run components. If you don't have a component set and you're just replacing speakers, you can keep your tweeters in. If you're keeping your factory head unit, keep your tweeters in. And then you can just replace the speakers. The component set does that crossover in there, so this is going to be a lot clearer highs on it, and you'll have smoother mid-range on it as well. So that's it. Thank you for watching Upstate Miniman. If you liked the page or you just stumbled upon and figured you want to hit a like on there, great. Subscribe, cool. We're going to keep things going. I think some of the stuff I took off of my car for the JCW might go on to the wife's S. So we'll put JCW parts on hers. And we've got some other modifications from Daniel's car that we're going to start doing there. So we'll show you some of the convertibles. Probably do a stereo in the convertible and a couple other upgrades to the convertible as well. So thank you for watching, guys. Take care.